computers and how we can now get on Facebook as students. And a lot of valid points were made, and I think the communication gap between administrators and people that work on technology and the students and teachers that use it every day were closed. And like a lot of good points were brought up about cell phones, technology, wireless, how the wireless is open to all students now. So it was a really effective, I think, meeting for both parties in that. And the last point that I wanted to make was student government has, I think, $10,000 in their bank account, and every year we put that money towards something. And one of the gym teachers approached me, Mr. McFadden, about getting a week for special education classes because the kids in wheelchairs don't have anything to do in gym class because he doesn't really have any resources for them. So student government at their next meeting is voting on teacher grants. And teachers will just apply. We think we're going to give away 2 $1,000 grants to teachers. That way they can use that money towards anything they want. But we're going to form a committee, and every teacher can send in a grant. And then we will vote on like the committee, and we will narrow it down to 10. And then as a student government of 60, we will vote on those 10 grants to approve them. So, and then with the rest of the money, we wanted to do another school project. And the first thing we hear at all freshman orientations is cafeteria is the first thing you see, cafeteria is the first thing you see. So we wanted to repaint our cafeteria and actually make use of the stereo box that we have in there, which, you know, random times people go in and use it, but I mean, we have TVs in there, we have a senior lounge, and it really should be the nicest thing they see when they walk in our school, and it's really not at this point, so that's about it.
Nice. Very good, thank you. Future board meetings, we have our next board meetings at Armour Elementary on January 10th. We have a budget work session on January 24th, and then on February 14th is the following board meeting, which will be at the high school. For board members, do we have committees or sessions or things that we attended that anyone wants to make any reports on?
I just want to make a comment. I know that Rick is going to kill me. I can't divulge anything because we don't want to cause panic in the schools, and I agree with him. But I want to put we've done the technology committee a few meetings here, and I've been there, and you know, I consider what I said was a high. You know, we want to do this. We want to be at this level, and it's going to be hard to be at that level. But the staff that attend these meetings said, well, we can be there if we do this, change this, and if these people have such great ideas that took that and just ran with it. And Rick does a great job of the meetings where I said it's funny because he stands there in the front and then just slowly goes off to the side, and the group takes over and comes to a consensus on what they want to do and which way they should go. And it's the first, I think it's the first time in all the years that I'm on the board that I think the committee's been making some progress. And it's amazing, and I see Jackie's right there using her iPhone to go on her iPod or iPad to, you know, do her presentation. It's just, that's the future, and you know, we should have been at that point, you know, years ago, but we're going to get there slowly. So I think technology-wise, we see some great increases here in the
Other things people want to share from board members?
Yes, we did have a District Health Advisory Council meeting back in November, and the main highlight from that meeting, I would say, would be the wellness policy update. The committee is going to be working together to reviewing the policy. Our last updated policy from the board was back in '08, so we'll be working to bring that to the Board of Education, a better updated policy. That was the main highlight of the meeting.
But still, they're trying to make it more uniform.
Yes, yes. And in concussion management, Mr. Whitman did report that we're doing much better on reporting of the concussions with students and with Governor Cuomo's policy and stuff.
Monitoring kids in there,
Yes.
they're recovered before they get back into their
Yes,
schools.
we've really made a lot of progress in that respect. That's
We had our luncheon
that one.
today with the kids at Boston Valley School. It was great fun. They're always
Laugh.
absolutely hysterical, the sorts of things that they came up with. Steve left halfway through, so he missed the bunch of requests that they have in terms of school improvement plans. So we'll let you know.
I did act on your behalf at my other meetings.
That's right. My kid collapsed at another meeting he attended to, and he picked him up before he hit the floor, so that was nice of him. So, okay.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
recognize the sixth grade at the Hamburg Middle School, and I think Mr. Dill's sons also. I know, they collected thousands of dollars. They had like a team, the teams were competing against each other. The teachers actually, they put their own money to buy pizza for the kids, and whichever team collected the most money for the neediest family, they're buying gifts for some of the neediest families in our district, and it really got the kids involved and got the kids into, giving, and not just for themselves. I know my son kept asking for extra lunch money so he could, but, and the teachers spend their own money, to buy the winning team pizza, and they spend their own money to, encourage the kids to give. And I know, I believe, the one team collected like $900 more than the other teams, and they get some kind of reward. So I wanted to recognize the teachers at the middle school for really getting the kids involved.
As long as it worked, all my clothes were gone.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing?
What happened?
Okay, move on to the consensus items. There are, I have a motion to approve the consensus items first. Motion to present the vote on it? Motion.
Your motion?
Okay, and then do we want to bring a few out? I think we had at least
Second.
a second on that motion? Second, okay. And then, before we actually vote on them, I think we had already, an addendum that we were adding in, the G4F we added in. Are there other things that people would like to bring up for discussion that we can vote perhaps first on the group and then save the other ones for discussion?
I'd like to move G2, B2, and G4.
Your discussion?
Okay, G2, B2.
For discussion?
For discussion?
Yes. I'll second that motion.
When we're looking at G2, B2, there is an associated change in status with that on the personnel agenda, so I don't know if you want to remove the change in status as well prior to voting on the remainder of the consensus agenda, because that's impacted by G2, B2.
G2A, right? I just pull out the one.
It would be change in status to payroll assistant and health, to the payroll assistant and then to the human resource business manager. So you got two individuals under change of status that the discussion may impact.
G2, B12.
Okay. So we'll separate those out and lump those together afterwards and vote on those. Okay?
G2A 12. Is that what you said?
Is that the one that, that's the last time I'm asking, is that the?
2A. Two people enclosed in it.
Yeah, two people under change of status. If you want to take out the entire change of status piece and just vote on that separately, that would be fine.
Okay. So our
And I don't-
motion is modified then, correct?
Okay?
Include G2, B12.
Yeah. And the other piece that I would recommend, based on our audience, is to pull out the advisor for Club Gay Straight Alliance and vote on that as a separate item, so we recognize that specifically as we vote.
Okay.
B2, A3?
I seconded it.
Yeah. So we then have the consensus items that stand, that we're addressing at the moment are the minutes, are some personnel appointments, resignations, advisors, team leaders, not including the two change of status folks that we mentioned, and not including the advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance. We do indeed have some field trips. Do we want to be discussing these field trips, or we can leave these field trips in
Pull out.
consensus? That was pulled out. That was pulled out, okay. Okay, we do have special ed preschool committee recommendations and subcommittee recommendations. So can I have a motion to vote on the ones that we've, that are presently remaining? Is that okay? Can we go with that next? We had that motion.
I think we have that.
Okay, can we vote on that? All in favor of passing the other ones?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, then we'll go back to the items that we pulled out. Shall we go to the advisor for the Gay State Alliance first?
Absolutely.
I think it's important enough to leave a roll call vote.
Absolutely. And can I have a motion to vote on that? A second?
Second.
And do it as a roll call. We really appreciate the presentations made today and also at previous board meetings. So let's, go Matt,
Definitely yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
myself, yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the change of status.
G2B2.
And it had the associated two components of G2 and 12. Okay?
I guess I just wanted some clarification on the difference in costs on replacing the payroll supervisor between subcontracting it out to BOCES, which sounds like would fit into the 75% return on expenses the following year, as opposed to the increase in pay to office personnel, basically $10,000. I mean, when you do the math, it looks like the price is about, the cost of the district is about the same. Whereas if you're subcontracting it out, wouldn't we have the benefit of moving some of the liabilities for making sure payroll's completed and correct as well as?
Well, there's, according to the information received from BOCES, there is still the liability and majority of the work is done in-house by the district. So the payroll clerk is still a big part of the operation. What we're doing is supplying all of our payroll data to BOCES. And BOCES is running that. There is a significant amount of communication going back and forth between payroll clerk and BOCES to make sure the payroll is accurate, and when it's run, it's going to be run accurately with all the intended recipients of payroll checks as well. It is something that I believe a district, when you have a payroll issue, you want that to be able to be handled in-house. If a check needs to be issued or reissued, that's something we can do immediately. So I think from a financial perspective, we are abolishing a position under this proposal. That was, I believe, about $66,000 in salary and benefits. And what we're looking to do is to have those duties absorbed within the other two individuals. I will say that some of the action that we've taken, moving to one paycheck per payroll period and incorporating advisor pay, coach pay into those paychecks has helped from some time savings. So I believe the transition can be made smoothly, and I believe it's in our best interest to keep that operation in-house at this point.
And these two individuals feel that this is not going to overburden them?
We've talked significantly with HR, also with Barb's office as well, to make sure that that communication will be there in terms of between business and payroll, as well as being able to absorb additional duties and human resource, and we don't see any impact on those duties.
How is the time collected in the district and reported to payroll? Do we use, is it filling out timesheets, is it time clocks, is it phone calls? How does the payroll?
Sign up,
What's that?
yeah, or electronic sign up.
Yeah, how does the payroll person figure out how much to pay each person? How do they get that information?
We have traditional attendance sheets that transform that into the hours for the pay period, and then it's inputted into our WinCap program, which is a BOCES provided service that receives aid.
Okay, so we essentially use the BOCES system, we just use the people.
We use the
here
software
to do it?
system, and
Right.
correct, and we have our point people who work out the change of status, the projections, the contracts for individuals, and that's worked out in-house.
So under one of the scenarios that we looked at, is subcontracting is the BOCES, that's what Tom was saying. The cost to keep it in-house versus the cost to transfer it elsewhere, net of our aid, is about the same.
I believe,
Is
no, I.
that fair?
I think the net of the aid gives us less of a savings. When I look at the $66,000 salary of the individual who's leaving us, and I take 10,000, yes, salary and benefits, and I take 10,000 off of that, that's a $56,000 savings that we're actualizing through this action. The BOCES gave an estimate of $40,000 to $50,000 in expenses there. So, you know, the savings, and we still, I don't know if I'd have to give an increase to the clerk or not, but again, I think, you know, the savings is significant, $56,000.
If we had BOCES do it, we still would have that savings, though, right?
Yeah, we still have that
Plus
savings,
we
we're
get-
still abolishing that position.
The
But we're
percentage
expending,
back, right?
we're expending 50,000, say 40 to 50,000 additional dollars, and then be receiving, I don't know what my update said, you know, based on that, BOCES 73%.
The net amount, although it wouldn't be realized until a
Right.
year later.
Correct.
What we didn't expect, Bob, is that BOCES still requires a district point person. And that is something that we really can't get around.
You can't get it, you're not gonna avoid that.
That's correct.
Somebody's gotta call it in or get it into the BOCES.
There has to be the checks and balances, there has to be that immediate customer service within the district
The
also.
staff member needs to get paid, you can't say you come back in 4 days, it's gotta be, okay, we owe you this money, where you go?
And initially, we weren't aware of that until we researched it further. They do require that point person.
So we would have to be paying somebody extra here anyways.
Correct.
So if we.
One, not two.
One, not two.
Correct.
One.
My only concern would be that, you know, that $10,000, as I looked at it, I would say that the net cost to the district would be about 10, going through BOCES, recognizing we still need to keep the payroll. But what I like about having it done at BOCES is that there are no ancillary costs to that, that come with payroll. Benefits, TRS, DRS, whatever those additional costs are, that's not really noted here. But we would have those additional costs if we had to increase somebody's salary $5,000 to do some of the responsibility, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, my opinion was to superintendent, I really wanted to keep it in-house. I think that's very important. You know, I have colleagues who kind of utilize the other BOCES. The argument is always the same thing. As soon as you take away the personalization and your own control over how you run your own business, and basically that's what we do, you lose a lot. And the payroll isn't always a smooth thing. It doesn't always go real well. There's issues, things happen. And as soon as you are relying on an outside source and their schedule and their staff, you lose a lot of value. And then that, I think, honestly, would lend to other issues and grievances and pay problems. So if it's not exactly a wash, even if it costs us just a little bit, I would say I think it's certainly really well spent, and would probably be costing us more in some manner going the other way for problems that we wouldn't be able to fix ourselves immediately.
With reducing the one person, will we still have the proper checks and balances in payroll, knowing that that's a hotbed area where
Absolutely.
fraud and errors can cost you big time? You know, what policies and procedures do we have in place to make sure we're not doing things like paying ghost employees, that the paychecks, the teachers are being paid on the right steps, right hours,
Well-
taxes are being paid timely and correctly?
I mean, I can't answer it first from my office perspective. We actually, it's funny you asked that, because just today we have checks and balances of 3 different staff members doing the verifications from paper to the computer software program. And basically, we had a meeting this morning, and that's something that I requested take place today. So just from an office standpoint, you know, our human resources office manager, who is certainly on this agenda as, you know, part of your discussion today, is involved with additional responsibilities that she customarily didn't have previously. But we reorganized the department, and we literally put 3 people on the scene today to make sure that there isn't an error. So that's just kind of the logistics of HR and payroll, and Bart can certainly answer the checks and balances from the district perspective.
any further discussion, or are we ready to, we make a motion to vote on those two? I think it's the G2A12 and the G2B2. Motion to vote on those?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we then have G4 that we also pulled out. There are discussions that would, anyone would like to initiate, sending a motion first, G4 first, well, we made a motion.
You make a motion.
Let's make a motion for approval of the G4, which would include the new G4F. Motion? Move for discussion, a second? There are issues that any board members want to be present. This is a discussion of some field trips.
I'm gonna make a comment, and it's not critiquing, because I think we made great strides in our field trips, but one of the things that comes to mind is the music trip to Cleveland, Ohio. We always ask to be tell us all about your trip, whatever, and when I read this, I say to myself, why can't you do it here in Buffalo? Not to be cheap and not to get the experience of taking a trip to Cleveland and seeing things, but it's to see a concert, see how your own instruments are played, and if there's something else in there, I mean, there's no cost to the district, but when a parent comes and says, well, I got help on a point center salad, candy salad, chicken barbecue, and we get the complaints all the time of, you know, every time I shut the door, some of the kids knocking and asking for money for something. And we've always said, it's just a generalized comment of explain what's going on in Cleveland that's so different from the Buffalo.
And just to address that, and perhaps take a little bit further, I've asked Mr. Davis to take a look at, number one, the number of days of student attendance that are missed of regular school with the various field trips we have. So we're taking a look at all of the field trips together and see how much school we're missing, and see if there is, you know, certain areas that we should look at either from the calendar to make some changes from the calendar standpoint, or to have the board look at a policy that only a certain number of days would be excused from school to go to field trips, and that would be total, not just per club, but total per student. So Greg is going to look at that, and part of that will be also exploring, you know, where are there opportunities available perhaps closer, and really taking a look at the advantages of a trip. You know, we talked about, you know, the Cleveland trip, but we have, you know, New York City trips, et cetera. So just talking about the advantages of having students participate in field trips of that nature. And I think that, you know, one of the things I noticed that Mrs. Pepper put on her piece here was just those real-world experiences that students have to have. Now, you know, we want them to have real-world experiences. I don't know if they have to go to Cleveland, New York City, et cetera, to have those. So that's something that Mr. Davis will look into, and I think we need, you know, more input from a variety of you know, not only of the advisors, but also of other folks to take a look at, you know, those issues.
And so I'm not labeled anti-field trip, but after 9/11, we were one of the first district. We were the first district to reinstitute field trips abroad, out of state, to do things. Even just to Toronto, we had to cancel those trips. So we're, you know, it's just that we went from approve this, we took it last week, you know, to being late on approvals, to getting it much earlier and better. It's just that someone's gonna ask, hey, I saw that field trip on your agenda, and how come they're going to Cleveland, why can't they go to Buffalo?
Right.
Just to be able to answer those questions. Could be they're going to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like somebody mentioned, it could be that, you know, there's nothing scheduled from the Buffalo Philharmonic that would pertain to this, which is fine, but.
The other things that we've talked about over the years are sub days, and I think we're doing better in terms of not needing so many substitute days. That's something we've been careful about. And I know, a year or two ago, we had a questionnaire that we sent out to parents to say, when you're bombarded with $1,500 trips for each of your 3 kids, each kid's gonna go on 3 $1,500 trips, do you still want your child to have that opportunity? And we were very impressed with how much our parents said, you know, we want our kids to have every opportunity they possibly can. So, you know, we know that parents are supporting it as best they can, but we don't want to burden them with it, and we want to make sure that we've got the kids here taking advantage of the education that we're providing as much time as possible. Were there other specific ones in this? I'm sorry,
I was
Greg.
going to say, we looked at it from the financial point on the fundraising side. We haven't looked at is the instructional side, and there's certainly a lot of research for field trips and getting those real world experiences. If you have to balance that with how much instruction time they're missing, especially with this aggressive reform agenda. Missing a day of school is a lot of information that you're missing. So I think I'm starting to put a group together tomorrow, actually, to look at the instructional side of it, not just the cost side. How do you balance, if we can do it in Buffalo versus Cleveland, or do it in New York versus Florida, those kind of things. So we're looking at all aspects of it, so that when you are making a decision to approve a field trip, you have all of the components and the impact of that decision. We are doing much better getting it in our time.
We are.
are.
We're talking 3 months in advance sometimes instead of a week after.
And we've talked about, I don't think we've implemented the fact of making it easier for the teachers, it's an electronic way where it can get sent and get approval electronically, where it's quicker and easier, but I mean, that's kind of a, I built something to do it, so, because the staff members also complained it took forever. By the time they got all the approvals for a trip that they would take, like, I'm gonna use DECA as an example, it was getting to crunch time where, hey, we're leaving in a month, you guys haven't approved it yet, because we haven't got all the approvals yet, so I think it's been streamlined a little bit, still not perfect, but it's kind of.
I'd like to see a little more thoroughness in the impact of the form you're filling out. We did it on the financial side, and I think we can do it instructionally as well.
Well, I think going through on the expense side also, not trying to pick one out, but I will. The science Olympiad, you know, for the two teachers we're paying mileage to, would it be, with things like that, you know, two questions. Why do they get paid mileage, or are they transporting the kids? And, or are they taking a bus? And the second question, it's cheaper at that rate probably in that distance to rent them a car than pay the mileage.
That is, the parents are transporting their own children to that, so that is a mileage reimbursement for staff, for two staff members. Because of the distance of that trip, we can't take a school bus to it, so that really becomes a little bit more cost prohibitive to have, say, a coach bus. Whether or not it would cost less to rent a car and do that, I don't know. We have to look into that. But if that's something the board wants us to explore,
We still have to pay for gas then.
yeah, you still have to reimburse costs of the.
When you do the math, I know myself, if I travel for the bank more than 100 miles, they make me go rent a car. I'm going down to Pennsylvania tomorrow. I've got a rental car out there from the first thing in the morning. So that's just something to look into.
That's something
trying to be
we can look into that.
But that seems like a lot for
Standard mileage is, I think, 55 cents right now, but, but the issue is, it's a better deal just to rent a car. For
right, yeah, I don't have a problem with the 50 cents.
100 mileage.
That's normal.
Probably half the cost.
Well, we can look into that. That's
because
something we'll explore.
mileage is based on wear and tear of one person's car plus fuel plus, so if we took that out and just paid for fuel.
The 55 cents actually would include the fuel. It's the cost of renting the vehicle, but the rental car plus fuel would be.
Oh, plus, right, yeah.
But there's transportation costs and meals of $150 in there per student, so that's what confused me on the transportation. So we can't take a bus to Cleveland. Is that what you're saying?
I wasn't looking at Cleveland. I was looking at SUNY at Ulster. That's the
Oh,
one.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it's
I got
also a small,
Cleveland
it's
on
a
my mind.
small.
I want to go to the Rock and Roll Hall. Can board members go?
I'm sure it's a great trip, I'm not, right?
We'll rent you a car.
Okay, so we'll hear more
Okay.
about tightening up the
And
rules
we'll-
of that, or the advice on field trips. Are there other discussions that we want to have on these field trips?
I think it should still go forward.
We'll go for, we've got a Cleveland one, a Science Olympiad one, a Spanish trip, a Letchworth State Park trip, Science Center, and then a softball, baseball.
Baseball.
Excuse me.
Question, Holly,
Baseball
you
and
got
Florida.
chaperone one, right, the rafting?
Can I have a, we made a motion?
Did we get one of
Second
those sheets
motion?
on the baseball trip?
No, it's right here.
Okay.
You didn't get it, but this is, that the extended field trip for the varsity baseball team to Cocoa Expo Sports Center in Cocoa, Florida, from March 15th to March 19th to be approved.
And that is over a spring break.
No, that is not over spring
It's not
break.
over
That is a longer weekend, and the students there and teacher will miss one day of school on Monday the 19th. Spring break is late this year, which is why they're not going to spring break, because they'll be playing games at home.
Cocoa Beach.
Yeah, which is a common place for sports, particularly
training.
baseball and,
They've gone
yes,
there before.
baseball and softball to go to.
And the teams do the fundraising themselves.
And
Correct.
there's no
Spaghetti
cost to the
dinner.
district?
One substitute day would be the cost of the district for that.
And the students are responsible for all workers that are online.
Correct.
Okay. We have a motion, we seconded the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to action items.
Yes.
Our first action item, H1, we recommend a motion that the Board of Education of the Hamburg Central School District approve payment of $5,900 to Jennifer M. Muley for services rendered as acting tax collector for the portions of the District of Lyon, the towns of Boston and Eden, in lieu of payments to David Schenk, who was unable to perform the duties of his appointment. Such motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Oh, second motion?
Second.
Second.
Sorry, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Just,
I'm sorry?
just so it's known, and just so it's on the record, that the reason that David Schenk was unable to perform the appointment in case no one knows is that he was on duty in Afghanistan.
So I say we should thank him for his service.
Yeah.
That's not his, that's his second trip.
Second time.
Yeah.
Very appreciative.
Okay, H2, recommend a motion, resolve that the Board of Education of the Hamburg Central School District reimburse a sum not to exceed $733.75 for medical expenses related to injuries sustained during school activities on April 12th, 2011.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, H3, resolve that the Board of Education of the Hamburg Central School District reimburse a sum not to exceed $530.84 for medical expenses related to injuries sustained during school activities on May 4th of 2011.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
H4, I recommend a motion that resolve that the Board of Education of the Hamburg Central School District reimburse a sum not to exceed $736.16 for medical expenses related to injuries sustained during school activities on August 24th of 2011.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Then recommend a motion that approval is given to the summary reports of collected taxes from the towns of Hamburg, Eden, Boston, Orchard Park for the 2011-2012 school year to the Hamburg Central School District Board of Education, and therefore be it resolved that the treasurer of the Hamburg Central School District has received the stated taxes and the list of the unpaid taxes, and this list has been forwarded to the office of the Erie County Commissioner of Finance.
So moved.
Motion second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
The second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
There we go. Yeah, I hear you.